His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa received a telephone call from Lebanese President General Joseph Aoun, during which the President expressed Lebanon's condemnation of the blatant missile attacks launched by Iran against Bahrain, affirming his country's full solidarity with the kingdom and its support for all measures taken to preserve its sovereignty and security. The Lebanese President also strongly condemned the involvement of a terrorist cell affiliated with Hezbollah in terrorist plots targeting the kingdom's security and stability, emphasising Lebanon's support for Bahrain in all measures it takes to protect its security. His Majesty expressed appreciation for the positions of Lebanon and for the sincere fraternal sentiments of solidarity expressed by its President, as well as for his support for Bahrain. The Council of Representatives yesterday held its weekly session, presided over by its Speaker, Ahmed Al-Musalem. The session approved 7 letters received from His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister regarding draft laws which were referred to the relevant committees. The Council then approved a draft law amending certain provisions of the Penal Code and a draft law amending certain provisions of the Correctional and Rehabilitation Institution Law and referred them to the Shura Council. The session also approved the annual report of the Financial and Administrative Control Bureau for the year 2024-2025. It further approved 11 urgent proposals and referred them to the Government. The Minister of Interior, General Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, headed Bahrain's delegation at the 43rd session of the Arab Interior Ministers' Council, held via video conference amid extremely complex regional circumstances and the hostile Iranian aggression against the GCC states, which is condemned by all international conventions and humanitarian laws. On the occasion, the Minister delivered the Kingdom's statement.
إلى كلمة معالي الفريق أول الشيخ راشد بن عبد الله الخليفة وزير الداخلية في مملكة البحرين، فليتفضل معالي. تفضل معالي.
يطيب لي في مستهل كلمتي أن أتوجه بالشكر إلى أخي معالي الشيخ فهد يوسف سعود الصباح، النائب الأول لرئيس مجلس الوزراء وزير الداخلية بدولة الكويت الشقيقة رئيس الدورة السابقة، على ما قام به من جهود موفقة ساهمت في تعزيز التعاون الأمني بين دول المجلس. كما يسرني توجيه الشكر إلى معالي الأخ الدكتور محمد بن علي كومان الأمين العام لمجلس وزراء الداخلية العرب وإلى الأمانة العامة على حسن الإعداد والمتابعة لهذا الاجتماع، والذي يأتي في ظل ما تتعرض له دول مجلس التعاون لدول الخليج العربية والمملكة الأردنية الهاشمية الشقيقة من عدوان إيراني سافر وغير مبرر تستخدم فيه الصواريخ والمسيرات الموجهة، مما يشكل انتهاكا صارخا لسيادة واستقرار دولنا ويتجاوز الأعراف والمواثيق الدولية والإنسانية. وإن البحرين بعون من الله ثابتة راسخة في دفاعها عن سيادتها وعن مواطنيها والمقيمين على أرضها بفضل حكمة وقيادة سيدي حضرة صاحب الجلالة الملك حمد بن عيسى الخليفة ملك البلاد المعظم القائد الأعلى للقوات المسلحة حفظه الله ورعاه. وإن الالتفاف الوطني حول قيادة جلالة الملك المعظم هو ركيزة تماسكنا وملاذنا الآمن الذي يحقق لنا قوة الاستقرار الوطني، منوها إلى الإجراءات الحاسمة والمتكاملة التي تتخذها الحكومة الموقرة برئاسة صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير سلمان بن حمد آل خليفة ولي العهد رئيس مجلس الوزراء حفظه الله في التعامل مع تداعيات العدوان الإيراني الآثم. منذ بداية العدوان في 28 فبراير الماضي باشرت منظومات الدفاع الجوي الباسلة بقوة دفاع البحرين عمليات التصدي للصواريخ والمسيرات الإيرانية، كما عملت وزارة الداخلية على تفعيل خطط إدارة الأزمات والتحول من الإجراءات العادية إلى البدء الفوري في تطبيق الخطط المعتمدة، وذلك خلال وقت قياسي تم في التعامل مع تداعيات الاعتداء الآثم والذي أسفر عن استشهاد وإصابة عدد من المواطنين والمقيمين وترويع الآمنين واستهداف البنية التحتية والمواقع الحيوية والمدنية، ومن بينها المطارات والمناطق السكنية ومنشآت الطاقة والماء والكهرباء والمشاريع الاقتصادية الحيوية. في الوقت الذي تمسكنا بموقف عدم الانجرار إلى حرب نحن لسنا طرفا فيها، كما تركزت جهود وزارة الداخلية على حماية الأرواح والممتلكات، حيث عمل رجال الدفاع المدني والإسعاف الوطني على مدار الساعة لمجابهة تداعيات العدوان الإيراني الآثم. كما قرر مجلس الدفاع المدني تعزيز إجراءات الحماية المدنية في إطار الحرص على التواصل مع مكونات المجتمع كافة، وإيمانا بأهمية المحافظة على جبهتنا الداخلية متماسكة، عملت وزارة الداخلية على تعزيز التواصل مع كافة فئات المجتمع وبث الطمأنينة في نفوس المواطنين والمقيمين بمختلف جنسياتهم باستخدام لقاءات متعددة في إطار التوعية الأمنية. الحضور الكرام، إن مجلس وزراء الداخلية العرب أمام تحدي رئيسي تفرضه تداعيات الحرب على دولنا اليوم، الأمر الذي يدفعنا إلى مزيد من التعاون والتنسيق لتحصين جبهتنا الداخلية وتقوية إجراءاتنا الأمنية المشتركة، وهي غاية نتطلع إلى تحقيقها، الأمر الذي يجعل من مواصلة تطوير آليات التعاون والتنسيق بيننا مسألة حتمية، بما يجسد وحدة الهدف والمصير المشترك. وفي الختام أتوجه بالشكر والتقدير لإخواني وزراء الداخلية ممن بادروا بالاتصال وعبروا عن وقوفهم ومساندتهم لمملكة البحرين، متمنيا لأعمال المجلس التوفيق والنجاح والخروج بنتائج تسهم في تعزيز الاستقرار ودعم الأمن. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
The meeting discussed several aspects of security cooperation within the framework of joint Arab action, recommendations issued by meetings held in the framework of the General Secretariat, and the outcomes of joint meetings with the Arab and international bodies. They reviewed the report on the work of the General Secretariat between the previous and current sessions of the Council and a draft of the second phase of the revised Arab strategy for combating terrorism. Prior to the session, a preparatory meeting was held with the Undersecretaries of the Interior Ministries of the Member States. The Arab Interior Ministers issued a declaration at the conclusion of the session regarding the hostile Iranian aggression against Arab states, which strongly condemned the cowardly Iranian attacks against them and constitute a flagrant violation of the sovereignty, a blatant breach of international law and the UN Charter, and a serious threat to international peace and security. It emphasised its complete condemnation of this aggression and the deliberate Iranian targeting of civilian objects and infrastructure, which endangers civilian lives and has resulted in civilian casualties, which is a flagrant violation of all rules of international law and the principles of good neighbourliness. The Council strongly condemned Iran's repeated provocations against Arab states and its firm denunciation of Iran's practices aimed at destabilising security and stability in several Arab countries and undermining peaceful coexistence among the various components of Arab societies. It affirmed its full support for Arab states in confronting the ongoing Iranian aggression and its complete endorsement of the measures they are taking to safeguard the security, protect the territories, citizens and residents, secure the national institutions and facilities, and exercise the legitimate right to self-defence. The Council emphasised its rejection and condemnation of Iran's continued funding, arming and deployment of its affiliated militias in several Arab countries to serve its own interests, which constitutes a serious threat to the security and stability of those countries and the region. The Council expressed its profound appreciation for the heroic performance of the armed forces, security forces and civil defence agencies in Arab countries in responding to these attacks, and its respect for the sacrifices they make to maintain security and stability and protect lives and property. The Ministry of Interior announced via its account on X that the Civil Defence extinguished a fire that broke out in a facility belonging to one of the companies as a result of the hostile Iranian aggression. The competent authorities have begun their procedures at the site.
Dear citizens and residents, when hearing the first warning sirens while driving, kindly do the following. Continue driving and clear the left lane to open the way for emergency vehicles, civil defense, ambulances, traffic, security patrols to perform their duties. Listen to official media channels. Seek shelter in the nearest building or take cover in non-exposed areas until the danger has passed. Dear citizens and residents, if you're at home or at work, kindly do the following. Be calm, don't go out except for essentials, and as per instructions and guidelines issued by competent authorities. When you hear the second warning siren when the danger ends and situations are back to normal, the following procedures should be considered. Do not gather near affected areas for your safety and avoid hindering civil defense saving lives operations. Do not pick up objects thrown on the ground even if they are familiar to you.
The General Command of the Bahrain Defence Force announced that through the unwavering vigilance of its personnel, the BDF's air defence systems continue to successfully counter successive waves of the hostile terrorist Iranian aggression. Since the onset of hostilities, air defences have intercepted and destroyed 186 ballistic missiles and 419 drones targeting the Kingdom of Bahrain. The General Command expressed its pride in the exceptional combat readiness and vigilance demonstrated by BDF personnel and commended their sustained operational effectiveness in defending the Kingdom. The performance of Bahrain's forces continues to inspire confidence that the Kingdom's skies remain secure. The General Command urged all members of the public to exercise the utmost caution for their personal safety. Citizens and residents are advised to keep clear of affected areas and any suspicious objects, refrain from filming or photographing military operations or debris sites, avoid spreading unverified information, and consult only official and government media channels for updates, alerts and advisories. The General Command further emphasised that the use of ballistic missiles and drones to target civilian areas and private property constitutes a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law and the United Nations Charter. These indiscriminate attacks represent a direct threat to regional peace and security. In the following report, the General Command of the Bahrain Defence Force presents a data briefing highlighting the achievements of the nation's defenders in safeguarding Bahrain's skies, waters and territory against the hostile Iranian aggression.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اجعل هذا البلد آمناً. إن رجال منظومات الدفاع الجوي بقوة دفاع البحرين يطلعون ولليوم 33 بدور محوري عظيم في اعتراض وتدمير صواريخ ومسيرات الغدر الإيرانية، محققين ولله الحمد نجاحات كبيرة بسواعدهم الباسلة، تعزيزاً للمنظومة الدفاعية لمملكة البحرين وتثبيتاً لأركانها حسب الرؤية السديدة لسيدي حضرة صاحب الجلالة ملك البلاد المعظم القائد الأعلى للقوات المسلحة حفظه الله ورعاه، فجلالته أيده الله دائما ما يؤكد إن جهود التطوير ماضية في مختلف أسلحة ووحدات قوى الدفاع البحرين للمزيد من الجاهزية والكفاءة لأداء الواجب المقدس حماية للوطن وكرامة لمواطنيه. وإن رجال قوى الدفاع البحرين خير من يحمل هذه الأمانة السامية، فهم الدعامة الراسخة لوطننا العزيز. إن أصوات الانفجارات المسموعة هي دوي نجاح دفاعاتنا الجوية في اعتراض وتدمير الصواريخ والمسيرات المعادية، حيث بلغ إجمالي ما تم اعتراضه وتدميره منذ بدء العدوان الإيراني 186 صاروخاً و419 طائرة مسيرة كانت تستهدف الأعيان المدنية والممتلكات الخاصة في المملكة. إن كافة أسلحة ووحدات قوى الدفاع البحرين تقف بكل قوة وعزيمة في وجه الاعتداءات الإيرانية الغادرة منذ اندلاعها في 28 من فبراير 2026، حيث تمكنت قوى الدفاع البحرين من تدمير موجات وأعداد كبيرة من الاعتداءات الجوية الآثمة المتمثلة في الصواريخ والطائرات المسيرة الغادرة، مما يثبت الكفاءة الدفاعية العالية والجاهزية القتالية المتطورة لمنظومتنا العسكرية. إن الجميع لا يفخر بما يظهره رجال البحرين في كافة الأجهزة العسكرية والأمنية في الحرس الوطني ووزارة الداخلية والجهات المعنية الأخرى من مسؤولية وطنية وعمل دؤوب مستمر يسهم بفعالية في حماية الأرواح والممتلكات وترسيخ ركائز الأمن والسلامة. تؤمن قوى الدفاع البحرين إيمانا راسخا بأن جيوش دول مجلس التعاون لدول الخليج العربية تشكل الدرع المنيع لكافة دولنا الشقيقة، وهي قوة خير وأمن وسلام، ولله الحمد وبعونه نحن صفا واحدا لدحر وإحباط تلك الاعتداءات الغادرة. نهيب بالجميع ضرورة الابتعاد الفوري عن مواقع سقوط الشظايا أو الأجسام المشبوهة وعدم الاقتراب منها أو لمسها تحت أي ظرف، حرصا على السلامة العامة وتجنبا لما تشكله من خطورة بالغة يهدد الحياة وقابلية للانفجار في أي لحظة، مع التأكيد على أهمية الإبلاغ الفوري عنها لإتاحة المجال للجهات المختصة للقيام بمهامها. وتجسد هذه المشاهد الاحترافية العالية لرجال وحدة هندسة الميدان الملكية، وهم يؤدون واجبهم بكل كفاءة واقتدار وفق أحدث أساليب الهندسة العسكرية المعتمدة، مكرسين أعلى معايير الانضباط والتعامل الآمن في تحييد كافة الأجسام الغريبة وتأمين المواقع المتضررة. إن الجميع لا يفخر بما يظهره رجال البحرين في كافة الأجهزة العسكرية والأمنية ربي اجعل هذا البلد آمنا.
The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Abdulatif Al-Zayani, met with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres during his visit to participate in the Security Council meetings held under Bahrain's presidency for April. The meeting discussed developments in the regional situation, the implications of the Iranian attacks on the Gulf Cooperation Council member states and other Arab countries, and the impact on regional security and stability. They also addressed the risks of closing the Strait of Hormuz to international navigation, as well as the United Nations' efforts to promote international peace and security, support sustainable development, advance humanitarian work, and resolve conflicts worldwide. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Abdulatif Al-Zayani, affirmed that Bahrain's assumption of the presidency of the UN Security Council for April 2026 represents a significant historic milestone in its diplomatic journey. This achievement reflects his pioneering contributions to strengthening international peace and security under the leadership of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa and the directives of His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa. Dr. Al-Zayani expressed pride in this high-level international responsibility undertaken by Bahrain, coinciding with its chairmanship of the GCC and its presidency of the Ministerial Council of the Arab League in its 165th session at the ministerial level. This reflects the international confidence in Bahrain's foreign policy under the leadership of His Majesty the King and its steadfast commitment to coordinating Gulf and Arab positions and enhancing international solidarity for the benefit of humanity. The Minister explained that Bahrain's active diplomatic presence provides a strategic opportunity to strengthen adherence to regional and international charters by upholding the principles of national sovereignty, the unity and territorial integrity of states, and non-interference in internal affairs. He emphasised the importance of pursuing comprehensive, peaceful and sustainable solutions to conflicts, ensuring the safety and freedom of maritime navigation, safeguarding energy supplies and global trade, and combating terrorism in a manner that reinforces regional and international security and stability. He highlighted Bahrain's diplomatic success in mobilising international support to condemn the blatant Iranian attacks targeting the GCC and Jordan. This was reflected in United Nations Security Council Resolution 2817, co-sponsored by 136 countries, as well as a unanimous resolution of the Human Rights Council, supported by 115 countries. Both resolutions called on Iran to immediately cease its unjustified attacks, as they constitute grave violations of national sovereignty and territorial integrity, a serious threat to regional and international peace and security, and a flagrant breach of international law and international humanitarian law. Dr. Al-Zayani underscored Bahrain's commitment through its presidency of the Security Council to promoting dialogue, understanding and international partnership to reinforce security, stability and safeguard international navigation. He also emphasised Bahrain's efforts to strengthen the links between peace, security, sustainable development and human rights as fundamental pillars of the UN system toward achieving a secure and stable region and a world characterised by coexistence and prosperity. The permanent mission of Bahrain to the United Nations in New York has provided the international community with accurate information refuting the baseless Iranian claims contained in the communications of the mission of Iran. Bahrain's mission sent its 9th letter in its national capacity to both the Secretary General of the UN and the President of the Security Council. The letter issued by the permanent mission of Bahrain to the UN included Bahrain's categorical rejection in the strongest terms of the unfounded allegations contained in the letter from the permanent representative of Iran to the UN, affirming that these allegations are baseless and groundless. The letter also emphasised that the blatant Iranian attacks against Bahrain were and remain unjustified. It reiterated Bahrain's full respect for the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity and non-interference in the internal affairs of states and good neighbourliness, as enshrined in the UN Charter. The statement emphasised that despite numerous diplomatic efforts by the GCC to avoid escalation, Iran has carried out and continues to carry out military operations against the GCC, including Bahrain. These operations have deliberately targeted several civilian sites, including vital civilian infrastructure, civilian airports, seaports, commercial ports, essential infrastructure, energy infrastructure, oil facilities, basic food supplies, desalination plants, roads, shipping centres, residential areas, hotels and apartment buildings. Bahrain also affirms its rejection of any attempt to distort the facts or evade responsibility. The statement further emphasised that Iran has threatened the use of force, and the GCC states immediately rejected this threat, calling for de-escalation and reaffirming their commitment to regional and international peace and security. The letter also reaffirmed Bahrain's full and legitimate right to self-defence, proportionate to the nature of the threats it faces, in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter, within the framework of international law and coordination with Bahrain's allies and partners. The letter further called upon the Security Council to unequivocally condemn any attempt to justify, legitimise or evade responsibility for such hostile acts, and to take urgent and decisive action in response to Iran's repeated violations that undermine international law and threaten regional and international peace and security. The letter concluded by affirming that Bahrain is assessing all the damages resulting from the blatant Iranian aggression and will continue to keep the UN informed of all developments. The Minister of Education, Dr. Mohammed Juma, affirmed that updating operational processes in educational institutions will significantly enhance the utilisation of services related to special education and early childhood education. This follows the Ministry's announcement that, in light of ongoing reviews, several educational institutions have been permitted to resume operations, including early childhood education programmes and services for students of determination. Private schools have also been authorised to implement assessment processes related to international certifications. The Minister commended the commitment of all public and private schools to the assessment processes, ensuring the continuity of the educational process. He expressed appreciation to all members of educational institutions for their ongoing cooperation and adherence to the policies and regulations adopted by the Ministry.